Okay, what got you interested in coaching?
Well, so I started playing Overwatch like the end of like sort of the middle of the season when Ariza was really strong. I
Right.
don't remember which one that was. Season 2 maybe. Um
Uh-huh.
and I'm sort of coming over from Heroes of the Storm, which I played for I don't know, 5, 8, 6, 7 years, sort of since
Dang, dang.
the preseason, like
Okay.
after the beta, like after it had been released, but before ranked was a thing.
Wow. Okay.
Um So I played that for a very long time and made some good friends there that I'd played together with. But my sort of learning there was sort of organic in that I mostly learned by playing the game and,
Uh-huh.
getting better over time. And like I eventually, made master several times in different sort of configurations,
Awesome.
including solo. But then I came over to Overwatch and in part because, well, sort of in the middle there, towards the end, some friends of mine started playing Warzone, and I played that with them for a bit. But I found Warzone sort of frustrating because I don't have much of a history with FPS games. Like,
Right.
I've played them maybe a bit here and there, but really not at all seriously or consistently. And sort of mechanically, they don't make as much sense to me. And that may be because
Sure.
I grew up, playing RTS games like, StarCraft all the way up through all the Blizzard RTS games.
Right.
So Heroes was a much more natural fit for me. But Warzone, I found it very frustrating. Just it was hard to get like just enough reps in because you'd spend a big part of the game like collecting weapons and running
Right.
around the map. But as
Right.
far as like the gunplay part of it, it was rare. And if you messed up or even just lost a 50-50, then you'd be out for, you know, 10 or 20 minutes while your team, you know, did their best or finished it. And
Right.
so it was so one thing I like much more about Overwatch is that you can make mistakes and then you're back, 30 seconds later.
Right, right,
And
right, right. Well, that's why I can never get into the battle royales, and I couldn't even get into the CS:GO because like every time I go to a friend's house, I'd be like, bro, I have to sit here and watch. Like I didn't even like search and destroy back in like Black Ops days of playing on split screen, 12 years old, because it's like, bro, I die and I have to sit there and spectate for the rest of the round, right? Like you were saying, it's like I don't enjoy that at all. That is also one of the things that appealed to me about Overwatch. Okay,
right.
so you stick with Overwatch or you get into Overwatch, um, what heroes initially did you start to kind of specialize in or play more of?
So basically Oriza was sort of my first main.
Mm-hmm.
So getting into Overwatch sort of with friends coming over, mostly coming over from HOTS and also some friends of their friends. Like
Yeah.
we had a number of sort of support mains.
Uh-huh.
Um, so I felt like that role was covered.
Saturated. Yeah.
So I found tank to be the most sort of appealing role to me because in HOTS I sort of started out as a tank main, sort of when I got settled in, and eventually I switched to like sort of towards the end. In ranked, I was most drawn to the solo lane role.
Yep.
I don't know if you've played HOTS at all
I
or
haven't.
not.
I haven't. So you'll have to fill me in as you're educating me.
Right. But anyway, the solo lane role like is a sort of an important role because it's sort of just you against the like the it's a very important role because
Right.
if you die on the solo lane, then either somebody else has to come and rotate or
Oh,
you're
okay.
behind. Um so it feels very impactful and there's
Right.
also a lot of important decisions to be made like when you rotate to
Mm.
join the rest of your team to like set up a gank or something
Right. That makes sense.
versus that and I was playing like sort of the solo laner that I felt most sort of felt like my hero the most, and that I essentially one-tricked up to master, is Malthael, who
Uh-huh.
basically gets a move speed talent at level 1, so you get like an extra 15% move speed or
Uh-huh.
20% move speed when you're mounted, and
Uh-huh.
also is very sticky. Like, unless he can 1v1 a lot of heroes in the game, and it can be hard for them to disengage unless they have like a really strong disengage.
Ah.
Because he can leap to someone that he's attacked recently, and he has
Ah. So he
a slow
pursues kind of
tap.
a thing.
What was that?
Kind of pursues.
Yes, exactly.
Got it.
Um, so I kind of like Tank sort of felt the most similar to me in that it, because there's only one and because it's sort of the de facto front line, it feels very impactful.
Right.
And like you're sort of controlling the like ideally sort of controlling how your team plays and the other team plays.
Sure.
Um
Sure, that makes sense. Yeah, okay. Okay.
so
So then I'm seeing here that you kind of cycled through, you played some Orisa, some Reinhardt, some Sigma, some Zarya. At the time of the form, you said D.Va and Ram. Is that still the case or has that changed?
so basically once Orisa got the heavy nerfs and
Mm-hmm.
didn't feel as impactful, like I floated around a bit and I eventually settled on D.Va
Okay.
sort of as my main, and that has sort of remained steady.
Mm-hmm.
Um the thing I sort of had been struggling with a bit is who to play like when D.Va didn't feel impactful or wasn't fun.
Uh-huh.
Um and eventually I settled on Ram as like a good complement to D.Va, and
Okay.
um he's right now he's still feeling good. Like I've been playing him pretty consistently as my secondary.
Okay.
Um
Okay. Cool. Cool. So what appealed to you initially about, let's just start with D.Va. What appealed to you about D.Va specifically? I understand the tank appeal, but what about D.Va specifically?
I like that well I know that you've talked about like sort of the whack-a-mole aspect
Yeah.
of D.Va.
Right.
And I liked that. I liked that she had sort of the mobility to sort of punish people that are out of position
Mm-hmm.
or to get out of tight places. Like in that
Right.
way, in some ways, she reminds me of Malthael, where I had the extra move speed and was sort of running around the map to create
Yep.
advantages, either to create 5-on-4s or to, you know, to, just macro collect, kill a lot of
Sure.
creeps in multiple places and get ahead that way.
Sure.
Um, and I like that I felt like sort of that I could essentially sort of soft carry on her against teams that didn't deal well with her.
Right.
Um,
That makes sense. And then with Ramatra, same kind of stuff.
yeah, so I originally tried to get into playing Reinhardt because, he was very popular as sort of a brawly tank. And
Yeah.
basically, what I was looking for was somebody who could just contest points on like defense,
Mm-hmm.
sort of, especially, contest cart, contest points, could
Right.
basically just stand their ground and say, you can't be here or I'm going to hit you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That makes
but
total
I
sense.
couldn't really get into Rhine, and part of it was that my dives, my pins weren't very good, and also like I was tending to pin in and just get blown up.
Right.
Like I wasn't doing a very good job of setting it up, but um, and then I tried but Ram I eventually switched to trying Ram, and I found that he worked pretty well because he's got the shield, he's got a little bit of poke, which I like as well. Like again,
Yeah.
going back to the Orisa, that was something that drew me to the Orisa.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
something that drew me to the D.Va in that she can't like poke from a distance as much the way Orisa can, but she can go in and poke from a high ground or just dive in and poke. So there's some similarity there. Um, Compared to like a ram that you sort of only have your fire strike.
Right. That's true. That's true. There's more like dynamics with how you can play. A little bit of range, a little bit of brawl, lots of tools to kind of hold space. Yeah, for sure.
Right, and ram also like has his nemesis form, the punching, which I feel like I'm okay at the cycling. Like I don't always, do a good job of getting back behind cover, but I feel like especially at lower levels, like punching for a while and then just backing out, like
Hmm.
usually they won't punish you like immediately.
Right, that makes sense.
I-
Okay,
Like
okay. So you're currently with D.Va Ram. You're liking that hero pool. I think those heroes are pretty good. They kind of complement each other's strengths. Ram's kind of good with that brawly, not a lot of high ground, not a lot of mobility. D.Va's kind of setting up for the ganks and whack a mole and all that kind of stuff. Lots of high ground mobility. So you got two good solid options. Let's look at your screenshots here. So seeing this season, a lot of D.Va, a little bit of Ram. This is looking pretty good. I think that like you're definitely being consistent with your hours, and that's what you want to see, right? Like if you're new to the game, playing a little bit of everything will be kind of help you to find out what heroes that you enjoy. But having at least a little bit of a specialization is going to help you to improve that much better.
yeah, so that was
Yeah, this
definitely
looks
my
good.
experience in HOTS too, where like just sort of maining like one hero or two heroes, like you just sort of get in the sort of everything becomes more natural.
Right, of course, of course, of course. And I also think it's like it's kind of a journey for you too because you're so still so very new to the game, but you want to keep trying different heroes and playing different things, but along the way having a little bit of specialization here. Maybe you try, I don't know, DPS a month from now, or maybe you try a different, like you become a Roadhog OTP in 4 or 5 months. You never know what's gonna happen, right? But like along the way that you're kind of like applying yourself to different heroes. So at least if you do move on from Orisa, you did feel like you kind of had a good grasp of her. If you do move on from D.Va, you learn something about her along the way. It's a journey, right? So, okay.
Like actually, since I sent in the form, like sort of as a sort of for fun, chilling, but I have been playing more DPS, and I've sort of been one tricking, well, Tracer followed by Soldier
Mm, mm,
over
mm.
there. And like honestly, I feel like I like Tracer for some of the same reasons I like D.Va, and in some ways it's in some ways the positioning aspect is easier as Tracer because I know it can be like
Oh yeah.
entirely behind them and don't have to worry as much about
Oh
so
yeah.
the balance between peeling versus positioning, like setting up a dive on the back line
Yes,
and that
100%.
sort of thing.
100%.
um
100%.
and like I was very worried about like my mechanics aren't amazing, like my gun targeting. So I was worried about that playing Tracer, like it was just gonna be a nightmare. And also like my ability to use blinks in time, but I've really been enjoying her and found that I can be impactful, like even with not being a young 18-year-old with quick
Yeah,
reactions and
yeah,
who's
yeah.
been
I
playing.
I got you. I got you. So here's my question for you: Is ganking? What is ganking in Heroes of the Storm? I feel like I know what it should mean, but I want to make sure that because I think it's gonna be important for today's review.
So I would define ganking as here in Heroes of the Storm as like ideally with Malthael, it would be like either you've got a fairly even fight, let's say, a 3v3, and then I would, rotate through fog so they can't see me coming, and then engage out of fog and stick on the hero and slow them down, and we would, rotate on them and kill them
Hmm. Hmm.
immediately. Or like I would be sitting in fog and somebody would be rotating alone from another lane, like ideally, a support or a fairly squishy DPS. And I would jump on them and, kill them in a 1v1. Or I think especially sort of because Malthael was considered to be a strong solo laner, but not he wasn't that commonly played in ranked. I think because mechanically he's just a bit unusual. Um but I would find that I could just 1v1 people in the solo lane by just getting them a little lower or letting them overextend too far and then just
Right.
jumping on them and sticking on them till they were dead.
Ah. Okay, so it's just
Um,
basically like using the element of surprise to just take favorable 1v1s, basically. Just like leap out from the
yes,
fog and light them up.
exactly. Or 4v3s or 5v3s or
Yeah, I got it. Okay. Well, now I see why you like D.Va. And now I see why you like Tracer, you know? That's pretty
yep.
much this here's in a nutshell. Okay, okay, makes sense. Um Sleep looks good on the form here. What do you hope you get out of the session? Help you with your focus, my short-term goals, and long-term benefits of having somebody more knowledgeable than me talk to Overwatch with. Long-term, short-term goals. Short-term, choose areas to focus on for improvement and work on improving them. Keep improving as long as I'm having fun playing the game. Diamond seems achievable if I keep playing the game long-term. Okay, so what are you at in terms of play time right now? How about how much do you play per day, per week?
So, um, sort of a bit of background is that one of like my good friends who came over from HOTS really does not just finds competitive very stressful. So a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
time they want to play quick match, but I do try and play competitive like most days. Like I think I looked at it and it was about an hour a day of competitive this
Okay.
patch, and I would say that's spread over like at least 4 or 5 days a week,
Okay.
sort of. So like an hour and a half, 4 or 5 days
Sure.
or
Sure.
something. And then there's probably been like at least that much quick match where
Sure.
either I'll play tank sometimes and just practice my fundamentals, or lately I've been playing more tracer in quick match because I've sometimes find playing tank in quick match just sort of frustrating because the matches aren't as structured. And
Right.
um but that essentially that's I play probably 5 or 6 days a week.
Okay. In about an
um
hour and a half, 2 hours. Some of that quick, some of that competitive.
Mm, yeah, probably at least 2 hours. Like I would say, an hour to an hour and a half of competitive 5 or 6 days a week, and another, you know, hour to an hour and a half plus of
Got
quick
it.
match. Yeah.
Okay. Do you generally play competitive first or quick play?
Um, Basically it depends on who's on. Like if I
Right.
can play competitive, like I'd much rather play. Like I enjoy the competitive mode. That's my preferred mode, not just because of the ranked aspects, but just the way people play in competitive. And I
Right.
like on push maps, I like going both ways.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
the teammates are a little bit more just sort of consistent in how they play. Like in Heroes of the Storm, like I feel like one of my strengths was sort of macro and sort of being aware of when people were off the mini map, being timing those ganks that I was talking about,
Mm-hmm.
like when to make rotations, or like when I could, soak experience from multiple lanes. And like to sort of do that well, like I feel like there needs to be sort of some predictability, not just in how both in how your teammates are playing, but also how the enemy team is playing.
Of course. Yeah.
And that just sort of makes the game sort of makes a bit more sense to me. um
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, especially like you said, it's like you spend less time in queue because when you actually queue up, you're going to play the attack and the defense on a lot of these maps. So that alone makes it very attractive. Okay. I would just put it this way: with where your playtime is right now, I definitely think platinum is achievable. Um, Diamond might be a little bit hard, but I think it's also possible as well. But we can kind of cross that road when we get there. For like right now, what you're doing right now is good enough. So let's just focus on that. So what I would recommend, optimal playtime, try to get your competitive matches in first if you at all can. And then
mhm.
from there, if you want to hang out with friends and do quick match or whatever, playing tracer, playing tank, working on fundamentals, or just straight up having fun, that's fine too. It honestly doesn't really matter that much. The big thing
Mhm.
though is like getting that focused practice in first, and then once
Yeah.
you get that focused practice in first, putting your full effort, as much focus as you can, working at specific goals, like you said, in your form, and then from there, just like doing whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like in
That's
terms of training schedule right now, it's probably okay what you're doing right now.
Yeah. And I will say that sort of one sort of thing that has been sort of a struggle for me both in HOTS and now in this is sort of intentional practice, like
Yeah.
remembering what I'm intentionally practicing, like in the moment. Like for HOTS, like as I said, like a bunch of sort of my learning has just come from just playing, just getting the reps in,
Right.
and just sort of slowly like improving my autopilot skills essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
But like especially coming to Overwatch, which I sort of don't have as much background, and I'm sort of really learning it much more from scratch. Like, just there's so much going on, as I know you've talked about in past coaching sessions. It's really hard for me to remember, like, I'm practicing, staging from high ground, or I'm practicing not using my boosters to go in, but to get out. Um,
Yeah. I mean, it's difficult. How do you generally approach your improvement? Is it a couple of things at the same time, or is it one thing at the same time, or what?
well, like, in principle, I would like to focus on, like, one thing at the same time, but but I've often just find it hard to remember to focus on that same thing, like, especially, like, once the match gets going, like, towards the middle or the end of the match, there will be periods where I'm just sort of essentially just playing.
Yes. 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 Okay. And that's the thing though, is it's like even the most dedicated, like musicians, athletes, esports, whatever, people just getting good at stuff, you're gonna
Mhm.
have lapses in your focus. Like that's unfortunately inevitable. For you, it's about number one, building the habits to where you are more comfortable remaining and keeping yourself focused during those, and then also creating a
Mhm.
better environment where it's easier to focus. So for you, it's like that's why I ask about sleep, right? Because for most
Mhm.
people that have a really, really hard time doing this, not getting enough sleep, being stressed, being distracted, being tired, that's gonna make it a lot harder. That's why I ask
Mhm.
about playtime. I have some people that come up to me and they're like, hey, I play for like 5 hours a day, and well, I can't keep focused. I'm like, well, yeah, because you're playing for 5 hours a day. Like you're by the time you're at the end of those 3 hours, you're gonna be tired as it is, right? You're not gonna be able to keep focused. So
Yeah.
for you, you don't necessarily have those problems. So there's a little bit more of an expectation for you to really be focused for that hour and a half. And if you can't be focused for that hour and a half, at least as much as you'd like to be, that's not the end of the world. It's just something to kind of keep cracking at, you know?
Yeah.
It's just not, and honestly, like, even if it's not normal for anyone to be focused for the full hour and a half, everybody has lapses. It's about kind of having the ability and the habit of, oh, I've lost a little bit of focus. I need to remind myself. Okay, we're between fights. Remember, I got to focus on, or even like, here's another question for you. Do you ever get up between games, or take like a short break between games when you're playing competitive?
You know what? I don't.
That
And
might be something to do. And by break, I don't mean like 10 minutes, I mean like literally in queue, 60 seconds. You know what I'm saying?
mhm.
Getting up and moving around, that kind of like helps to refresh and recenter yourself. I mean, I do that with my coaching sessions. When I'm between doing
Mhm.
3, 4 coaching sessions back to back, I need to get up for just 60 seconds, grab some water, move around, shake around, like, do some jumping jacks or something. Like, I feel like if I don't take that break, I lose some of the intensity, and that might be something for you to do as well. Um,
Yes.
and then if you really want to get to the micro, having phone timers, sticky notes, making sure that you're only focusing on one thing at a time. Here's another one as
Mhm.
well, making sure that what you're working on isn't boring. So we're going to talk about fundamentals. I like fundamentals. I like the boring stuff. The
Mhm.
boring stuff is important. However, what I used to do when I was a less experienced coach is I would give people stuff to work on, and I'd say, all right, pick one of these things and work on it for a week. I stopped doing that because
Mhm.
after you practice something for like a day or two, you're like, okay, I'm bored.
Mhm.
I'm tired of working at this. Let's do something different. So that might be something for you too. Like, we'll come away from this session with at least 3 things for you to work on. I might recommend you to work on something once per day. I might recommend for you to work on something once per game, and then every game you're changing what you're working on, just to keep it fresh, just to keep it
Mhm.
interesting.
Yeah,
So
that
I
makes sense.
I think for you, there's less of a this is the answer to your problems, and more about that there isn't going to be a perfect answer to your problems. However, there will be a few things to help. Different things to focus on, changing it up, taking short breaks, making sure that you're getting enough sleep, sticky notes, phone alarms. I had like a 5-minute kitchen timer I used to use when I was playing Zenyatta and Ana back in the day. So like, whatever works for you, try different things, see what works.
Yeah. And honestly, I think hearing what you're saying and thinking about it, like, honestly, just, like, sort of read like, focusing on learning to learn, essentially,
Yeah, yeah,
might pay me back well,
sure.
might be a high return.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's why I love my job, really, because like, I mean, I'm not much of a hardcore video game player all the time, but something about Overwatch is just like I've learned so much about just like learning and stuff as a whole, even selfishly, not just coaching, just like learning, getting good stuff myself, that I feel like it's helped me a lot. So I think, like you said, like learning to learn, and you already have a little bit of an edge on things too. Like you were a great Heroes of the Storm player, so a lot of those skills are serving you in this game, and so now it's like, what can I get out of this game that's going to help me in the next thing that I do, 10 years from now, Okay. Do you have any questions so far?
No.
Okay, what do you feel is holding you back from improving? You say inexperience, obviously. Applying my knowledge in game when many things are happening. Welcome to Overwatch, right? I feel like if not one of the most stressful games, I think there's just so much going on all the time. So it's like you were saying, like using practice to kind of build one skill at a time so that you can autopilot skills, right? The Overwatch is just like, how fast can I autopilot skills? Right, my reload, my positioning, my cover usage, my mechanics, my cooldown usage, because the more things that you can autopilot, the more you're going to be able to get better at this game. And then having a hard time reminding myself what I'm practicing when many things are happening. Obviously, we talked about that too. Anything else that you want to go over before we jump into gameplay?
No.
Okay. Well, let's talk about gameplay. Let's give you some stuff to work on here. So, I like codes that are either close games, competitive games, a reasonable demonstration of my gameplay, or games where you're like, I didn't know how to play versus these guys, or on this map, or I wasn't sure what I was supposed to do. Either one of those is fine. Either it'll be an educational, or it'll be like an investigation about what you're doing wrong. Either one can work. What do you think?
Let's do the Midtown game. I feel like there's an attack on D.Va where sort of pushing under the bridge. I feel like I'm just sort of throwing things at the wall to see what sticks, which often results in often I will sort of try to position or set up a deep position or something to cause some chaos and be prepared to stage on the back line, but I'll do it in a place that's just not good, and I just die or get low or something. I don't feel like it. I feel kind of lost at times there. So that might be a good one.
Sure.
Then also on the fourth one on Antarctic Peninsula in the first round, we had captured the point and sort of where to stage and set up to defend it as D.Va. I feel like I have some questions there as well.
Do you want to just jump to Antarctica and maybe look at that specific example, and then after that go to Midtown? I mean, I don't mind if we jump around some too. That might be fun. I've had VOD reviews before where we look at one fight from 7 different maps, right? So however you want to approach this here. Okay, so was this the round that you were talking about with Antarctica?
Yes.
Right on. Okay. So Hanzo, there's some Hanzo that we can gank. Brig, gank. Mercy can gank. If you can get close to the Hog without being in front of them, you can obviously peel off the Reaper. Good. So for you, one thing that kind of you're on the support, which is obviously really good. But one thing that I like to kind of think about is as quickly as you can, looking at your HP, you have to be so disciplined with D.Va HP, right? So when this Reaper, you could see it right here, you force Wraith right here, but then you kind of lose track of him, and then he starts shooting you in the butt. It's especially now that your Mercy's dead here, it is going to be so hard to regenerate that HP back. So I know we're kind of on a little bit of a tangent here, but I think with D.Va, it's about being very, not as much as a Winston without a bubble, but try to be very black and white about whether I'm doing something or whether I'm not doing something, right? Very, very little do you want to be in between.
Yes, and one thing that I also find that I struggle with is sort of I don't know that I was aware that my Mercy was dead here, and also when I'm LOSing my healers, when they access to heal me and when they don't. In one way, that's one thing that's been very nice about playing with friends is like when I have especially one friend who plays support main and can just let me know when I'm out of her sight.
Right. Okay, so maybe a habit to work on is like as soon as this Reaper dies, you know, obviously it's like right now, before you engage here, do I know where my supports are? Do I not just where my supports, but I know where my DPS are? Because if I want to push this, I can't push this by myself, right? I'm going to need my Hanzo to be firing logs down the corridor. My Zinni ought to be shooting right clicks and such. So the reason why this engage kind of works is because look at what happens. You see your Symmetra, you see your Roadhog, you see your Zenyatta. They're helping you. They're not shooting the hog, but they are distracting the Mercy. They're making things really difficult. And so that's why maybe we get the kill here. So I guess looking for times when you can chill. And like right here, for example, don't peek this Hanzo, right? Just chill, because like what damage are you gonna do at this range, you know?
None.
And so you might as well either you're diving the brig here, which is good, or you're doing nothing. There's no in between. And obviously if you have the opportunity to, grabbing a health pack here is good as well. So because like your Mercy is dead. So okay, so this is the fight you wanted to look at right here, right?
Yeah, I think this was one of them.
Okay, so let's talk about positioning here. So I like how you're positioned. This feels like Heroes of the Storm gank position, right? Where they're going to walk forward to the point and you're going to be in a position to push them. So where would you say is the engage line? Like, where do you want to start ganking? When do you want to start ganking? Look at your team, you tell me.
Yeah, so, I mean, the best place would be to let them come through the little opening where the Symmetra turrets
right here
come out. Yes.
Right. So you got to be really careful, because theoretically you could start ganking now, but that would be stupid, right? Because it would be to be essentially like even your Hanzo wouldn't be able to help you that much, right? So what do you need to be doing right now, essentially?
I think I should be, if anything, positioned a little sort of further back and able to take deeper cover.
Yeah, sneakier, right? The answer is do nothing, right? Try to hide, however that may be, you know? So the problem here is it's like, you know, you are baiting a lot of attention, but nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the core, sort of like an issue is that I'm sort of trying to bait attention in a way that and
well, here's a checklist for tank, right? You need to put pressure on the enemy team.
Yes.
Okay, but you also need to decide when is the best time to put pressure on the enemy team and how do you put pressure on the enemy team. Right now, you have the how figured out, right? Because you are set up for a gank onto a Hanzo Mercy. This is great. I coach D.Vas all the time. They're just going to sit in the middle of the point and just shoot the tank and then just slowly die, right? That is not you right now. You're doing a good job. The problem is you've got the how am I putting pressure? Because look at this Hanzo, look at this Mercy, look at, they're all freaking out, right? But you miss the where or when, right? Like however you want to phrase it. And you were saying you would want to be waiting for them to walk through the choke. You're 100% right. So what we would do is you might be able to get out here. So that oh no,
I don't. He hits me again.
Yeah. But like this would be like, let's say that you were unscouted. This is your time to gank out the fog. Right. Let the hog walk forward. You know, take on all the space, and then you're on the back line, and it's just a disaster for them. Now you could also set this up in different positions too, right? You don't have to be back here. Where else could you be to set up for a similar like gank?
Possibly sort of in the window, sort of on the high ground, sort of
here
behind, sort of behind the Hanzo. Oh, I was actually thinking sort of over, like behind their team. Sort of in the
like up here
in that window.
Oh yeah. Very high risk, high reward if they might scout you, but if they don't, we're out.
Right.
Think of something more low risk but still gank.
Yeah, on the high ground to the left where you were looking, like the high, like especially like when I'm watching, you know, you reviewing Overwatch games and things like, or whole games or something like that. This high ground seems very important.
Yeah. And then if they push you, they all group up and push you. You're just like, oh, peace, y'all. And then you drop, and then you set up a gank. You know, I mean, heck, you could even be back here and setting up a gank, right? So those lots of ways to set up the gank or to control the off angles, to control the DPS, to dive the backline. The problem here is that you're doing the right thing, but you're doing it at the wrong time, maybe in the wrong place too. Because you're like, look at how much. I mean, we've got 3 people on you.
Yeah.
It's just a nature of like, there is no help here. There is no help. Now your Hanzo dies to a log, so I don't know, but like, maybe. It's just a disaster. Okay, was that the fight you wanted to look at here?
Yeah, there's another one later in the
same map or different map?
Same map, where I set up in the same exact position.
Okay, let's take a look then.
And
good, we get it. Okay, something like this.
Probably here.
Yeah. So you let them out. You know, you want them out. You want them walking into your Hanzo. I mean, this is it, right? Like, do you see how much damage that they're putting on you right now, right? Right? I mean, you've kind of given away your positioning. You're already down 150 HP. Your Mercy has to go back and peel you. So they actually don't force you out, but they still damage you, and that still sucks. You know, like that still sucks.
Yeah,
that being said, it's a little better, I guess. Because they did pop 2 ults, so you know it's tough. But that's unfortunate. But yeah, it's just the nature of like you can set up in their backline for the gank, but if you get scouted, you know, you're in trouble, right? You're in trouble.
Right. So that makes sense, and that's interesting to hear, because I think that sometimes, like, I think it's almost that I don't trust my team not to die early if I sort of let their whole team like push into that choke. Like, I'm expecting them to sort of be standing out in the open.
Right. Well, let's think about the timing of when you would gank, because generally if you're playing tank, you are going to be the guy that's going first, right? But when we talk about going first, it would be right now. You go. Because there are things for your team to shoot. Do you see? Brig, Hog, Reaper. Go now. You be the first guy. Surely they'll survive long enough right there. Right?
Yes, and the important thing is not taking the damage before that.
Exactly.
I think, like, I'm thinking that I'll sort of show and, like, hide behind cover and sort of reduce the amount of damage and sort of distract them and make them... But I think you've made it very clear that it's sort of not worth the trade-off of the HP, that it's better to remain out of sight, have the element of surprise for me, and the extra and have more resources, essentially.
Because the key thing is that right now you want to go in, but you're not full resource. So it's like you spend your resources when it's the least impactful, and then don't have them when it's most impactful, which is right now. And so to do a better job of that is to play better cover, play a better position, and think about Overwatch as the fog is the architecture itself. There isn't a fog in Overwatch. It's the cover and the positions that you're hiding in, right? So the fog is this little wall right here, right? There's your fog, you know? So if you're not utilizing the fog that the map gives you, then there is nothing on the mini map that's going to tell you, right? They're just going to see you and shoot you. So, okay, were those the fights you want to look at? You want to go to Midtown, or you want to keep going?
Those were sort of the 2 fights I had this specific question about. Like, we could either go to Third Point, which was the third map, which was D.Va. Like, I played Ram for the middle one, so I'm not as interested in going over that now. Or we can go to the Midtown.
Up to you. I'm down for either one. Your choice.
Well, let's do the third map.
Okay, sure. We'll stick with it. It's all about taking the favorable 1v1s, right? That's why you spend a lot of time ganking as D.Vas. Like, not that you can't tank on the front line. It's just that, like, there are tanks that do that better, right? And there are also a 1v1 versus a Roadhog, 1v1 versus a D.Va. You don't necessarily hard lose that. I'd say it's pretty close. But if a 1v1 versus a Mercy, you hard win that one. Versus a Brig, you hard win that one. Bastion, you hard win that one. So why would you not just take the better 1v1? The only problem is that to get to those 1v1s, you do have to implement a little bit of that ganking mindset, and you can't just walk out here. You have to be like, okay, where are these guys? So you're fine now, but like right now, it's like here, it's like you're thinking, yeah, see, I'm in a position to go for Mercy, so I'm going to go for Mercy. Line them up. So I think here it's like, you know, you get forced in these raw tank 1v1s. You're demanding healing, you're not able to win it consistently, and then meanwhile, that Bastion is just tearing your team all over the place. So then here you're thinking, how can I set up my gank? When is a good time to set up this gank? Where is that Mercy? Where is that Bastion? There's the Bastion. Don't peek him, wait it out. One of the things, the weaknesses of Bastion is, and you obviously know this by now, is it's like, this guy is like S tier DPS right now, right? He's amazing. But as soon as this is over, you know, kind of done, right?
Yeah, Bastion was sort of one of my first DPS heroes. Like, I got up to, you know, high silver, low gold, like mainly meaning Bastion on DPS, like just for fun, like just a few games.
Right.
Like, ironically, I found it much easier to win on DPS.
Yeah.
Like in Overwatch earlier.
Interesting. There's fewer resources to manage. You know, I mean, look at the bottom right. Matrix, boosters, missiles. You know, there's a lot of things to kind of think about.
Right, and another part of it is just I feel more able to basically play my life more. Like I can position just further back and put out like consistent good damage. Like especially with like Bastion, you can just wait for tank to come up and then often just blow up their tank because in this rate elo they're out of position.
Yeah, that's true.
So it was sort of an easier for me to adapt versus D.Va, where we're like positioning, like you can't just play like in the back line.
No.
And so it's taken longer to sort of learn that sort of back and forth, the cycles of D.Va.
Sure. So you coach yourself here, right? We wait out the Bastion turret for him, obviously, if we can do that. And then knowing obviously what we know now, what's the play? What's the goal for you at some point?
Goal for me at some point, like I think ideally maybe come down and around sort of from the left towards the BAP or over to the Mercy, sort of behind the Bastion, sort of.
Yeah, I mean that's it, right? Once you get this Reaper out of here, I mean, there it is, right? Like, now, she was nice enough to present herself to you, which is gonna happen, right? But there's your 1v1, right? And then now, that Bastion has turret form, so let's get the next target, right? Go get him. Because this is gonna create space, right? Like, that Bastion is not a threat to your team, and not only that, but the Mercy, who should be helping these guys, is backing up to help the Bastion, who's already dead, and now the Mercy's on top of you, so that's another 1v1 that you've created, right? So, it's like a... It's like a snowball effect going on here, right? So we're like one after the other.
That's how I want to be playing D.Va, but I feel like I'm not. I sometimes struggle with it.
It is hard, right? It's difficult to always be able to get to the targets that you want to. You got to be real smart. I notice sometimes that after you Matrix, sometimes you're slow to start shooting again. So watch this right here. See that? You feel that full second of delay there? Interesting. I noticed that earlier as well. Something maybe
it may be that I don't realize my Matrix is gone. Like I assume at that point, like I'm completely out of it, but I may be still holding down right click.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's actually maybe a habit that we can look at further.
Yes.
Yeah, obviously good there. Very good. I mean, everything feels good when you're getting on top of squishies with D.Va. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, so this is the gank mindset coming out again, because you're trying like, but again, what's the problem here? If I pivot my camera, you know what you're going to see behind you, right?
Right.
There's nobody here, but we don't care. So when you're thinking about a gank, where is the fight going to happen? Do you think? Give me an approximation.
The fight is going to happen, like, they're probably going to be either up on their high ground or on the sort of coming in from the left side or on the high ground to the right side. Probably one of those three
somewhere around here, right? Might be over here, might be here, might be here or here, right? So your position makes no sense. That's the key thing. There's nobody here to help you.
That's good to hear, because I think in my mind what I'm doing is just trying to slow them down from getting back to point.
Right.
But again, I think what you're making clear is that it's not worth the trade-off in sort of resources and sort of time to set up, like in your
Exactly.
platinum tracer coaching session
Yeah.
that you posted a day or two ago. Like I could be using this time to set up and set up out of sight.
Right. So where do you think that would be? Give me some ideas. There's never any one answer, but what are some ideas?
So like in that room to the right, um, yeah, sort of inside that room with the mega.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like that's one place that you can set up where they can't really see me until they enter there.
True.
Or on the left side, like I I'm less sure of that I don't know if I knew that room was there.
Welcome to Antarctica. This map is a bit of a train wreck. I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot of stuff that you don't know is there. I mean, there's this over here. You know, there's this.
Oh.
Nobody even cares about this, but yeah. There's this stuff over here, right?
Uh-huh.
You know, you don't even necessarily need to be sneaky either. You could just sit right here up in high ground and be like, hey, shooting, but looking for opportunities to go. But at least you have the high ground, right? It's going to be somewhere around here, right? So you're slowing them down, but you also almost killed your Mercy. You lost almost all your Matrix. You're not set up to gank now from here or you know, here, right? And so and you also, there's a risk of you dying here as well. Nice. Fat blizzard, wow.
Yeah.
That was a good blizzard.
It was.
Nice. I don't think your tracking's too bad. I mean, it makes sense. You've been playing some Orisa and D.Va and Tracer, so it's looking alright. Your movement is awkward, but that's going to come with time. The aim itself isn't bad. I appreciate you respecting the Basha turf form, but still, you know, timing here.
Yeah.
When he's kind of feeding, I might even look for Bastion here at this point. Man, they are all focusing you. I'm telling you something. You're gonna realize that you are target number uno. You know, a lot of times. Which, if you position really well and you get this gank mindset, you're going to have an easier time with this, because they you know, usually we talk about, like, you know, don't focus the tank. Tank's really tanky. Try to find squid, but they're gonna chase you around the map. If you're more disciplined with your timing, you're going to be like, all right, appreciate y'all all focusing me down. Then you just completely wasted your Bastion ultimate, your Roadhog ultimate, and your rally, and now you're wasting your Valk by focusing me down. And you're not you're not even half HP. So, you know, you take it all day long. You're built for being focused down. Just make sure that it's actually at a good time. Nice. Good use of your mobility there. I mean, this fight might be lost, but you guys used one ultimate and they used 4, so you know, it happens. Okay. Thinking next fight. There's the Bastion, there's the Mercy. Now, invest. I was just talking about this with the previous D.Va VOD review today. And this D.Va obviously understands all the dive stuff, you know. But they were struggling with boostering onto squishies far away and just assassinating them, but then dying for it over and over and over again. And the reason why that's dangerous with D.Va is you are a shotgun hero. So if you use your mobility to shotgun in, you ever have like those Reapers that like wraith in and then just immediately die? Right? That's what you would do essentially here if you boosted for Bastion. I'd rather have you booster on Bastion and die and then maybe use Bomb to remech and all that. But what's a better way of getting to this Bastion? Maybe not right now, but setting up to get to him.
Probably going around the left side, since they're all positioned on the right side.
Sure. You could flank around this, or watch this. Fly above him.
Yeah.
And then drop.
Right, because none of them can punish me at that distance.
You see that? And then when you drop, what's your booster cooldown going to be like?
I mean, it's going to be up.
Yeah, it's going to be like 2 seconds, 1 second. You're going to take no damage. You're going to drop full HP and then annihilate him, and then be able to either booster to get the next kill or booster away to reset. So with D.Va, don't only think about boostering onto targets. Also think about, I want to go for that target. How can I use my boosters to set up on that target?
And that's sort of the 2-stage dive concept.
And that is the most complicated thing you're going to do with D.Va. So that's going to be very, I mean, I'm glad you understand it, but good luck practicing it. But I guess it's something that you can at least start trying to think about.
It's nice to hear that it's complicated, because indeed I do find it.
It is. Because it's like
hard.
you could be like watch all my coaching videos, be like, oh, I need to be killing squishies, and you boost her in, you kill a squishy, and then you die. And you're like, well,
right, or worse yet, like right now, sometimes I will boost her in and try to kill a squishy, and they'll get to 1/4 HP, and I'll die anyway.
Right. It's a tough experience, you know. But like, for example, a situation like this, you're good to go because they're not even looking at you. You got this is the gank that you wanted, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Pick a target and stay on the target, because you're in the situation right now where you're like, oh, I need to get Hog, okay, I need to get Mercy, and I need to get Break. Just pick a target. I appreciate you going for the Mercy, though. That was good. He's going to Death Blossom. Oh, maybe not. He just dies too fast. All right. Same kind of mistake here. We talked about this one. Set up.
Yeah.
Don't. And that's it. They don't even touch. GG's. So, here's what I'm liking so far before we get to the Midtown VOD. I like your squishy focus. I think you're doing a good job for the most part with your aim. Mechanic movement as a whole, we need to keep an eye on that matrix mistake, right? Like you were saying, I run out of matrix and I'm too slow to realize I'm out of matrix, so I'm missing damage. I think for you, it's going to be about paying attention to where your team is positioned before the fight, so you know where and how to set up your ganks, and then breaking that matrix habit. That's what I'm seeing so far. Do you want to go to the attacks to start here?
Sure.
Okay, let's take a look here. Do you have any questions so far?
No, I think it's been good so far.
Okay. And then there's some comps where it's the threat of the kill that's the space creation. Like I look at their composition, and there are lots of targets that you could maybe kill, but they're all gonna have a cooldown. You know, Babs, Lamp, Kiriko, Suzu. You know, Symmetra's gonna have TP or something that's gonna be hard. The Torbjorn's got his E. So you set up your gank, but you know that you're not even going to get a kill. You're going to scare them, force cooldowns, force attention, and then you need to survive and try again.
Yes, again, this is back to the pressure versus picks from your tracer.
Exactly. And that's just a good concept for, I think, everybody to know, but especially with heroes that tend to be that ganky playstyle, right? So for you need to go, well, okay, if I walk through this choke, I'm going to take about 1 trillion damage, right?
Yes.
And we're going to be stuck in this choke over and over and over again. And I'm going to do something that's going to seem like heresy. You might go in here and maybe take a favorable 1v1, but I want you to try and look for a small flank here. I really do. I want you to look for a small flank, force Kiriko, Suzu, TP, distract them, make them bait, and then you can either run back to your team and get healed, or you can run to the Mega and get healed. Walk up top, do it again. You're not even going hard committing for the kill. You're just setting up. Hey, look at me. I'm going to kill your squishy. And then rinse and repeat. Do it again. Over and over and over.
Good to hear, because I think that makes me think that some of my instincts are for trying things like that are okay or even good, but I think I'm not executing well enough.
That's the catch. Welcome to the club. You've got the coach's curse, right? Where you know all the stuff, but you're not executing on it so well, right? Like you create a distraction, you create space here. So now let's do it again. You know, create space by finding the target that you scare the most. See, the problem here is you're not thinking 2 steps ahead. You're thinking, I'm going to kill the tank now, which obviously it's a risk. It's not going to happen. And 2, where's your cover here?
Right. It's nowhere, and I don't even know like if I have turrets and and Torp turrets shooting me, which is what often happens.
Right.
When
Remember
I go
the
in
Bastion
like this.
idea? Remember the Bastion? You could booster on him. You're a shotgun hero. But how about instead you booster? Well, where could you booster?
I think it's got to be to the left somewhere because they're set up on right.
You see this? You booster here, hide. If the Orisa pushes you, you know, her Kiriko can't help, or Torb can't help, or Symmetra
right,
can't help.
And she's looking backwards.
Right. And you got cover, right? And then you will have your boosters again very soon, and you'll be able to get out. Instead of boosting in to them, booster into a position near them, but with cover. 2-step process. Invest. Good. And then do nothing, right? Remember, do nothing. You have no matrix, you're not fully healed, do nothing. Hide. And because very soon you want to do something. But instead you've never really stabilized. Do you notice that? You've never really regenerated, never really gotten full. Too much Orisa focus right here. And then again, two-step process. Booster, setup. Booster, setup. You could even try boostering up here, maybe. Setup. Probably not as good as the fire station, but it's closer to squishies. Oh my goodness gracious. Alright, hide. Right? Because how much damage are you going to do at this range?
Almost zero, essentially.
So just tuck in, hide. 3, 2, 1. Drop and break turret. Maybe booster on backline. Maybe booster over here. I mean, I'm talking about like some super sneaky stuff. You know,
I like that flank.
Yeah,
playing the back side of that, the door.
But the problem is here is you lose 150, 160 HP to do what? 20 damage? 20. I think 20.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? That's okay. You force it back a little bit. You know, you could fly over here now. Do it again. You could do, you know, get a little bit of healing. The break turret here. Yep. I mean, do you see that? Do you see how fast that turret annihilated? Like, annihilated, right? Now you can push it back out if you need to. You might not even need to. All right. Fall, dear. That's unfortunate timing.
Yeah.
Good. Don't focus that Orisa. Do not focus the horse. Ooh, good. Not great, but you saved your boosters to get out and then try again. Oh, maybe. Take one and stay on him. Take one and stay on him. That stem wall is so annoying, man. Oh my goodness. Maybe. 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 Good. Get the remix. Find the next target. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was good. Because now you could get healed up. Try again. Alright, let's go. This is what we're talking about. You see it?
Yes.
Look how close you're able to get to them without even having to use boosters.
Yes.
And then now, you could shoot Orisa or Symmetra, honestly, and just fly out. Like, you're... Good. Good. Unfortunate. Good target focus there. You guys win this, right? Yeah. Yeah. So for you, a lot of what we talked about here was kind of what we brought up with the Bastion thing, which is why I was so... I think it was so important to talk about that, because it's like, you can't just immediately booster on a squishy, right? Like, they're too far away. They've got too many angles in. So you need to think about, where can I fly to get closer to the squishy, but not take damage, and then immediately afterwards be able to go to the next step, if that makes sense. So whether that's here, whether that's hiding here, whether that's using the fire station, or even the window here, whether that's wrapping through all the way around to this side, or, you know, using this position to stage even deeper, right? So I think for you, it's like kind of like thinking always, take an angle, get closer to squishies, and then try to rinse and repeat. Rinse and repeat. You're a shotgun here, you want to get close, but you'd like to be close to where you don't have to use your boosters.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Yes, and I'm not like, when I go in, I'm not going to be taking Symmetra turrets and Torb turrets.
Right.
And
Right.
Orisa Spear and all of that.
Exactly. I'm very pleased with the things that you're trying to do, though. I think that you have, like you said, the right idea, just not always the right execution. And I think we've pinpointed a couple of things that are harming your execution, which are... What do you think? What are some points here?
I think giving away my positioning too soon, or choosing a spot to set up that's like in their vision.
Pressuring too early outside team LOS, not syncing the gank with team pressure, right? Kind of the same concept. Timing, positioning, a little bit of both there. That's a big one. Okay, what else?
When like attacking like a fortified position, like on the attack there, I think sort of not taking not setting up like soon enough, like sort of spending some time just peeling with Matrix and poking Orisa, and sort of just doing the Tink trade on main, and not like forcing myself to like pick a spot where I can be like out of their sight and can take no poke unless they hard commit to pushing me, and sort of setting up from there like soon enough and repeatedly enough. Like there's a
Sure.
lot of sort of throat clearing and just
Yeah. 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 Kind of like, well, maybe an opportunity will present itself without you yourself creating that opportunity. Like that's the
right.
thing is like when you booster to cover on a flank, or on an angle or whatever, sometimes they're going to respond in different ways. Sometimes they're just going to back up, and that creates space for your DPS. It makes it harder for you to dive, but it inherently creates value, right? Sometimes they're going to try to push you, which is what you want them to do, right? Now you're getting close to squishies. Maybe it's a tank, maybe it's a squishy, I don't know. Sometimes they're going to ignore you. Well, then now you just have a free flank to the backline. So, like, you create opportunities, but trying to create those opportunities without just diving into the middle of their team and trying to kill somebody, right? I mean, that's better than standing AFK on main, but it's only one step up. We want to be bumping you 2 steps up by, coincidentally, incorporating that 2-step process of setup, then kill. Setup, then kill. Don't just skip to kill. It's not always going to work like that. And then the matrix into shooting habit, keep an eye on. I didn't see it as much there. I think I saw it once, but that's something to kind of keep an eye on. Last thing I'd add is be more black and white with pressure. Do nothing, do something, avoid the in-between. That kind of falls in line with the second point about like the setup instead of just kind of like you said, clearing your throat. Understand that like your hero just isn't that good at clearing your throat. It's mostly to do with your range. Let's put it that way. When they are like 10, 15 meters away, your hero doesn't do a lot compared to other tanks. So you're one of the worst in the game. Winston, Wrecking Ball, D.Va, up there with the worst tanks in the game at that range. So you need to kind of create ways to close the distance creatively and carefully. And that's where like the just standing kind of not really doing much is not that good. You could take slow fights, but you need to be taking slow fights at point blank range. I mean, think about like that one last Antarctic round where you were like on top of the Bastion, on top of the Mercy, on top of the Brig, on top of the Roadhog. Like those fights were going on a long time, but you were doing buckets of damage, right? Like you were like unloading, right? That's what we want to see. We don't need it to be a fast fight. We just need to be a slow or fast fight with you on top of them. Not a slow or fast fight with you far away.
Yes, and or completely out of LOS of them.
Right, exactly. Not stealing your healer's resources, letting them focus on DPS, and instead thinking about setting up, right?
Right.
And that's where it's tricky. Okay, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay. So if you do have any questions, shoot me a message anytime.